Advanced Financial Modeling, Topic 8, Financial Modeling with Python. This lecture uses Google Colab, which is an environment for Python programming, and it's intended for students that are already proficient in VBA programming and have completed an introductory course in finance. Also, note for students, this topic is an individual assignment, meaning each student will watch the videos and save your Python notebooks to show that you've created and executed the programs as we do in the video. So basically follow along, and at the end you'll be asked to save the environments in which we're writing programs called notebooks to a PDF and upload those to Canvas. So, 4 learning objectives. The first one is we're going to write, debug, and execute Python code and programs using Google's Colab. To get Colab, you can go to that link right there, but it'd be easier just to Google search Google Colab and you'll wind up in the environment. So again, Google Colab allows you to write and execute Python code in your browser. By the way, Chrome is best suited, so I recommend you using Chrome for these exercises. And it has 0 configuration required. In other words, Colab requires no files to be saved to your device. Colab Python code is saved to a Google Drive. However, you must have a Google account created to do the next section. Let's just talk about the difference between VBA programs, which hopefully you're already proficient in the first couple months of my course, and Python. So here's the difference. VBA is a proprietary language that's offered by Microsoft in their applications. Python, on the other hand, is open source. It's a free program. Python can be run on Google Colab and on a browser. In VBA programs called functions are written in modules that were edited in the Visual Basic Editor in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint. Python programs are written in notebooks. Code is entered and run in the notebook cells, kind of like a line. Unlike VBA, lines of code can be executed outside of a program. So that's going to be the biggest difference I find between VBA and Python. You can execute individual lines of code, don't have to be grouped into programs. However, we're going to start writing programs, and then I'll show you later how you can just run lines of code one at a time. If you are running a program in VBA, you always start with the word function. You then give it parameters and brackets, and then you end the program or function with the words end function. Programs in Python start with the word def for define. Parameters are entered in brackets just like VBA. And at the end of those parameters, you put a colon. And after all your parameters are entered, and write your lines of code, use the word return to end the program and return a value. In VBA, you use a single quote to denote text. In Python, you do a £sign or a hashtag. In VBA, indents and letter cases do not matter, so you can mix uppercase and lowercase letters within variable names and such, and it doesn't matter if you indent or not indent lines. In Python, it is case sensitive. You got to be very careful when you use an uppercase and a lowercase because you're creating new variables with different cases. Also, indents are often required to show groups of code in Python, so you have to be careful in how you use your indents. So here's an example of a simple VBA program called CapM. You start with the word function, and this is in VBA. Give it a name, CapM, and it has 3 parameters, RF, beta, and market risk premium. And then I do a single quote, and it says this program computes asset return. And then I calculate CapM equals RF plus beta times MRP, and I hit end function. In VBA, or in Python, how I'd write that is I start the code with def, give it a name, CapM, give it the parameters, and then end, very important, I always forget to do this, putting the colon sign. And then I do a little comment there in it. Notice this is indented now. I did a single tab to do an intent. And then I just say return RF plus beta times MRP. So I didn't have to use the word CapM here. In VBA, how you'd execute this program is you'd enter it into an Excel workbook sheet inside one of the cells. And then you'd give it parameters. For example, you just type in equals CapM 2% as the risk-free rate, beta 1.5, and market risk premium of 5%. In Python, you're going to run the function, or also called call the function, with parameters in a notebook cell. We'll show what that means. So you just run this code. All right, so it kind of looks like VBA in a spreadsheet, but it's actually in this other environment. So let's all go to Colab and create a Python notebook. Again, you can go to this link or just Google Colab Google, and you'll wind up there. We'll do that in a minute. And then when we get there, we're going to open up a new notebook. Again, a notebook is sort of like an area, or it is an area in which you write the programs. It is much like a module in VBA. So you're going to, once we get into Colab, we're going to select File, New Notebook, and you're going to be required to log into Google if you're not logged in already. Then we're going to rename the notebook to CapM. We can use large, caps or non-caps, just make sure you remember which one you did. And we will go there now. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to Google, and I'll just Google Colab, or how about Colab Google? And looks like welcome to Colab. We'll go there, and I'll hit cancel because I already have some notebooks set up, but you won't. So hopefully you wind up at a screen eventually it looks like this. And then let's just go File, Open Notebook, or I'm sorry, File, New Notebook, Open Notebook if you already have notebooks created. New Notebook. And it'll give a name untitled. Yours probably is untitled 0.ipynb. That's an interactive Python notebook. That's going to be the always at the end of it, and then you can give it any name here. Let's go ahead and change the name of it. Go ahead and call that CapM. So you can just type in CapM there. I'll leave it untitled for now, but make sure you change that to CapM. And then we're going to start writing programs in here. Okay, so this is the environment to write VBA programs, and we're going to start by writing that program we just talked about, and it's going to be called CapM. So we're going to start off with def CapM RF beta MRP colon, and then we'll go ahead and put a hashtag. We'll tab hashtag and do that return statement, and then we'll call the program by giving it some parameters. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start with def CapM bracket. Let's go ahead and put RF comma beta comma MRP. Let's go ahead and put our brackets out there, or that colon. Hit enter. Notice it's already given me a tab in here, so that's good. And then I could say this hashtag here, this program computes CapM returns. Hit enter. This is all within what we call a cell. This is a single cell. And then I could say return. And then I'll just do RF plus beta times MRP. So I have my program written. Hopefully there's no error, but we'll find out. Now, how do I run this program? Well, I run it by either selecting this run, and it's running. You can see it's moving around there. You can also run it by, at the end of the program, doing Shift Enter. The advantage of Shift Enter is that it gives you a new line of code. So if I didn't do a Shift Enter and I just run it like that, and if I want to write more code, I have to kind of hover over this lower line and hit plus code. So it's probably better to just do Shift Enter. And now how do I call in this program with some parameters? I can just type the name of the program, CapM, put in, say, 2% risk-free rate plus 1.5 beta and 0.05 market risk premium. So the value should be 2% plus 1.5 times 5. So 1.5 times 5 is 7.5. So it should return 9.5%. And there I go. And there's the 9.5%. And I've found this with Python. It's 9.5% plus, looks like a 1 out there. So that's been an error, an issue with Python for at least as long as I've been using it. So later I'll do a round statement to round this down to 3 decimal places. So there you go. You ran your first program. Okay. So let's do a little bit more. In Python, you can have internal variables. So what that means is, what if I just want to specify in my program, we'll call this program capm2, RF, beta, and return on the market. Remember, return on the market is the total return on the market, and the market risk premium is the difference between the return on the market and the risk-free rate. So what I can do is say, well, we'll specify the expected return on the market, and then I'll create an internal variable, MRP equals RM minus RF. Then I can return RF plus beta times MRP. But I'm going to do a few other things in here just to kind of show off and learn some other parameter or other code. Notice everything is indented here. And I'm going to use several print commands. The print commands, all they do is return something, usually a value or text, to the display or your monitor. So I'm going to enter that, and then I'm going to say print text RF in brackets. So that's going to just give me text, comma RF. So that's going to tell me the value of RF. And then I'm going to hit print beta and the value of beta, print RM and the value of RM. And then I'm going to say MRP equals RM plus RF. And then I'm going to return. Now, why am I printing? Well, I want to see what actually I input. So it might be nice to see what gets input. And then notice, remember that problem with that 0.0001. I'm going to round the answer to 3 decimal places by using a round command. So I'm going to type in return, round, RF plus beta times MRP, and then comma 3 decimal places. All right, so let's go ahead and write this program. And by the way, then we're going to run it, and we're going to run it using the 2% risk-free rate, 1.5 beta, and now the expected return on the market is 7, not 5, because the 5 was the market risk premium. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a line of code. I'm going to copy this program, Control-C and Control-V, and I'm going to give it a name capm2. And I'm going to change this parameter to RM. Let's see, I can try to make this a little bit bigger. Sorry about that. And I can leave that. I can do a couple print commands. Print RF equals comma RF. And I'm going to copy that line of code and change that to beta and beta, and then RM and RM. And then with the return command, I'm going to say return return, and then that's going to be round, and I'll round that to 3 decimal places. All right, so you can pause and make sure you get this correct. Then I'm gonna run that program. Looks like it ran pretty quickly. It will give you an error if there was an error in it. I'll add a line of code here, and then I'll execute this program by typing capm 2% risk-free rate, 1.5 beta, comma 0.07 RM. I'll run that. Well, I see I have an error there because that's called capm2. And I need to change this to 0.07. 2 errors there, so capm2 and RM is 0.07. And looks like I got RF of 2%, beta of 1.5, RM of 0.07. Looks like I'm getting an error. So let's try to find out what the error is. Well, it looks like I forgot a line of code. Notice that MRP was never defined. So I need to define MRP equals RM minus RF. Now, this is important to show this because if I rerun this program, it's still going to be broken. What I need to do is when I call the program, it's still going to be broken. I need to rerun it first, then call it, and now I get the correct answer. So that's a really important thing to do. You could fix a program beautifully and then say, okay, I think it's perfect now, call it up, but you forgot to rerun it. So you got to make sure that you rerun it. Sometimes if I go back to a spreadsheet I've been using a while, I might go to runtime and run all. It's because sometimes the programs will time out. So usually if I haven't been away for a while, I'll come back and the module and I'll just run all. And that's your second program, CapM2. Now, if you need help on a statement, you can just put in a statement and a question mark often, and that'll give you some help. So for example, if you wanted to know more about that round statement, I can come back, hover down here, hit plus code, and then I can say round question mark, and I'm going to hit shift enter. And over here I get a description of the round function. Rounds a number to a given precision, and it tells me the parameters. The number here, or that's the formula I used, and the number of digits is the second parameter. So that's useful to know. All right, I mentioned you rerunning code. If the notebook times out or you've been away from a long time, I would go back, open up the file. By the way, if you come back to Colab, you might have to hit File, Open, Notebook, and then you'll find your notebook. And then I would then go to Runtime, and I would restart and run all lines. Okay. Also, later, we're also going to show that you can upload data into these Python programs, and you might have to re-upload the data if you've been away for a while. Okay, so more fun with Python. I want to use ChatGPT now. Usually when I'm starting a new program, since I'm a bit of a novice programmer in Python, I've been programming VBA for a decade or so, but I'm pretty of a novice in Python. I'm just learning. So a lot of times I'll just learn by just doing a Google search, you know, go to Google and write me a program that does this, or I just go to ChatGPT. So I went to ChatGPT and I typed in, write a Python program for Colab that gets the 10-year treasury rate. Now let me talk about why I said for Colab. There are several environments to run VBA programs. Colab is the easiest, and it requires nothing to be run on your computer. There are other environments to run Python. So I tell ChatGPT, write me a program for Python, because it has to do, the difference in different environments will be how you call up different packages like add-ins. We'll talk about that later. So I asked that, and ChatGPT gave me an answer or suggestion. I then hit copy code, and then I wound up with this code here. So this code here, it says question or exclamation point pip. Pip is for installing programs. I'm sorry, installing libraries within the Python environment. Install Yahoo Finance, Y-Finance. Okay, so it's told me to do that first, and then it told me to import the Y-Finance, that's a library, as YF. So we're going to give this library and this Yahoo Finance data library, we first call it on, and then we first install it using the pips command, then use this import. We'll talk about libraries at the next topic, but this is what the program told me to do. And then it gave me the program, def. That's the right, define, that's how you start a program. And then everything's indented. Get 10-year treasury rate, and then open close bracket, meaning there are no parameters to enter, and then a colon. And then ticker symbol is equal to TNX, the hat TNX, and then it's going to say treasury data equals YF, which is the Yahoo Finance it named up here, download ticker. The ticker is going to pick up the 10-year, that TNX, and period 1 day. All right, again, this is what the program gave me, so it looks like it's going to work, but I always want to go back and verify to the original Yahoo Finance website and make sure that is the 1-year treasury. And then it looks like it says latest rate equals that treasury data -1, closing price -1, not sure what that means, return latest rate, and looks like it gave me a print command, print latest 10-year treasury, comma, 10-year rate. So that's the program it gave me. And we'll go ahead and when I ran that, it looks like this. First of all, we're going to go to this text box. I want to copy all this program. I'll mention this here. Why is this in a text box? Because what I found is Python and Colab is very particular about the type of text. It has to be plain text. I can always copy VBA programs from PowerPoint text boxes to modules in my spreadsheet, but I have not very good luck copying programs from PowerPoint into Colab. So what I've created are these Word documents inside, or plain text Word documents inside this PowerPoint. So we can Control A, Control C, Control A selects all the data, and Control C to copy it. And I created this program, and let's take a look at it. Here's what I did. I'll delete that little first line of code there because it's just telling you what it is. So pip install, I stole that from that program we just looked at. And I stole this from that program we just looked at. It looked like it says I enter a ticker, I say treasury data equals Yahoo Finance, and the next line. So I just took those lines of code straight from the program that I got from ChatGPT, but I put it into another program I called CapM3. So what is CapM3? CapM3, all you need is a beta and a market risk premium. Because CapM3 is going to go out to Yahoo Finance and always give you the latest 10-year treasury rate as my risk-free rate. And then I just have return RF plus beta times MRP. I'll run that program. These are statements about that library of Yahoo Finance being installed correctly. And there's my 14% is my CapM return. So that's it. We also could maybe add a statement in here. Print treasury rate. Oh, so print RF should work. So let's see what happens here. Well, it didn't seem to print my treasury rate, but that would have been, we can work on that another time. So anyway, this is how I would check out this code, is I would probably go out and make sure that the RF is correct. Let's try one other fix to this print command. I'm going to take my print command, I'm going to take it out of here, and we need to probably put it before the return statement that ends the program. So let's try it with that. And I actually just added the print, open bracket, double quote, RF equals double bracket, comma, RF. And so let's see if it works if I put it before the return statement. So we'll run that. There's the 14%. And if I slide over here, it says RF equals 4.25%. That seems like the 10-year treasury about this date. So if that makes sense, so if the treasury is about 4.25, this is telling me it's 4.25 plus 2 times 5, which makes sense. It's about a little over 14%. Okay. So it looks like it works. Another thing I want to point out here is notice in one cell, I did the program and the calling of the program in one cell. Often it'll look like this, where you run the program first, and then I add a line of code that calls on the program, and I get the 14%. So either way, you could either have the program called in the same cell or separate it. A couple more differences between VBA syntax and Python. In VBA, if then else look like this: if, some statement, next line, the statement, else, the statement, else, the statement. Python, if statement, got to make sure you have that colon, statement, elif, that's the elif. Instead of else, it's elif. Got that. And then you have the final else. Array indexing in VBA starts with a base of 0, but you can change it with option base 1. So when we start creating arrays, the default VBA is base 0, but you change it. I always change it to option base 1. VBA, or for Python, it is base 0. I haven't really found a way to change it to base 1. Data types, default is floating in VBA, integer unless specified in Python. Usually doesn't have an effect. If you want to say not equal to in VBA, you would do these less than, greater than, and for Python, it's the exclamation point equals. The loops, the for loops in VBA, for I equal 1 to n next I with the statements in the middle. The for loop for Python is for I in range 1 comma n colon indent statements to be executed n minus 1 times. There is no final next I. So it just knows with the indenting that to replicate this. However, in Python, if you say for I in range 1 to n, and you set n equal to 5 somewhere in the program, it's only going to run it up to 4. So it doesn't include the last value. So it runs this code n minus 1 times, which creates a little bit of problems. Or you just got to be careful if you want to execute something 5 times and the user puts in an n of 5, you have to do n plus 1 to actually run it 5 times. If you want to do an exponent in VBA, you just say 5 squared is 25, or use the little hat or caret. And in Python, it is the double asterisk. And in aggregation in Python, in VBA, you would say something like present value equals present value plus. So it's variable name equals variable name plus. In Python, you just say present value plus equals means keep adding to PV. All right. So we're going to do a for loop aggregation program, and we're going to convert one we did use in VBA and convert it into Python program. In VBA, we created a program called p-value. And in that program right here, it's going to put in the parameters of payment n and r, and it says for I equal 1 to n next I, p-value equals p-value plus payment, present value payment. All right, so in this program, the initial value of p-value is 0, but I didn't have to specify this. And you aggregate it by saying p-value equals p-value plus. All right, so it's a common way of aggregating. And when I do this program for a payment of $100, 5 payments at 10%, I'm just showing you it'll add up these 5 cash flows and give you $379. Let's look at that program in Python. But to do that, let's first go to Python and go File, Open. So let's go back to Python. File, New Notebook. and go ahead and change the name of this one. I'm not going to do it, but change the name of this one to PV annuity. PV annuity. All right, PV annuity, just like there. And it's going to keep that IPYNB, integrative Python notebook. And here's the VBA program. And we're going to type in this program. So in VBA, you start with function. In Python, we start with def. And after you put the parameters in, you have to put the colon. In Python, you do have to set p-value to initial value of 0. Then, instead of doing for i equal 1 to n, you would do for i in range 1 to n plus 1. And remember, it's n plus 1 because Python would execute that for loop for n minus 1 times. So it doesn't include the final value of n. And then just for fun, I'm going to do a print in between there so I can see all the present value of cash flows. Each time it takes the present value of a cash flow, it's going to show me what's inside p-value. And then I have p-value plus equals, that means keep adding to itself, payment over 1 plus r, asterisk asterisk to the I power. So that's just to the I power. And then I'm going to return p-value with 2 decimal places. So let's go ahead and type this in. Usually I'm going to give you programs, you copy paste, but let's go ahead and do this one. Def p-value payment, comma, n, comma, r, close it and give it a colon. It's going to indent for me, p-value equals 0 for I in range 1 comma n plus 1 colon p-value, well, let's do a print command there. Print p-value then p-value plus equals, that means keep adding it to itself, payment divided by 1 plus r to the I power, and return rounded, or just round p-value 2 decimal places. So it's, go ahead and run that, see if it works. I'm going to hit Shift Enter. Wait for that to finish, see if I get any errors. All right, and then I'm going to call that program by p-value, $100, 5 years, 10%. Shift Enter. Oh, got an error. Let's see what that error is. Looks like I have a new variable, rund. Okay, well that meant to be round, so that's good. Give me a nice suggestion. I'll rerun that. I didn't get an error on the program, by the way. It just created a new variable. And then I'll rerun this, and I hopefully get the 370. Well, that's only the first payment. Let's think about any errors I have here. Have you figured it out yet? It's the tabs. I need to put the tab on the return statement because this for loop, it's going to do whatever's indented. So this is what makes programming in Python a little dicey. So let's see if this works. I'm going to rerun, and there's my 379. Well, that was painful. All right, so let's see what else we can do. Let's look at if-then-else statements. I'm going to modify this program, this p-value. I'll call it p-value 2, except I'm going to do, as I'm going to do it if-then-else. I'm going to let the user put in a E if it's end of period cash flows. In other words, the first cash flow is 1 year from now. or B, meaning the first cash flow is today. And we did this when we did the programs in VBA, and we found that if you do end of period cash flows, it's 379. Beginning of period cash flows, meaning today's cash flow, the first $100 is received today, is 416. So here's the VBA program, VBA program, P value 2. Here's the program in Python, def P value 2. But I'm going to just go ahead and copy it, and we'll just look at it for a minute. Notice again, I either do this colon here. I need to set P value 2 equal to 0. And then I have if enter begin equals uppercase E, then do the present value just like we did. Else if it's a B, discount it for one less period, to the I minus 1 power. Else enter B or E. So you want to make sure they enter the uppercase B or an uppercase E. So it's good programming just to always assume the user does not put the exact input in, meaning they use a lowercase b or the word begin. So we'll play with that a little bit. Let's go ahead and copy this program. It's over here. I'm going to just double click there, Control A, copy, go back to my program. I'll go ahead and paste it here. Notice you're calling the program right inside that cell. Run, and I get 416 when it's beginning of period payments, and if I change that to end, I get 379, and if I try to use like end instead of E, I get enter B or E. If I try lowercase b, I get enter B and E or E, and so I'll try a B again, uppercase B. There we go, 416. All right, so there's a program using if then else statements. Okay, so let's go to the next section. All right, let's do one more program. And this starts getting to show some real value to Python. What if I write a program in which I ask the user to input the parameters, say number of payments? Then what I can use are these input codes. So notice I have this program written here. It's called P value 3. It's the same code as before. Here's that return statement. And then I'm going to add some statements at the end of the program where I get the user input. So instead of just calling the program with the parameters, I'm going to say payment is equal to float. That's just the data type. Input, and then an input command. Input, enter the annuity payment per period. N equals integer, and I just put some text there. Enter the number of periods. R equals float, enter the interest rate. Enter begin, enter B for beginning. And so what it's doing is it's getting values in the payment N, R by asking the user to put it in. Then it calls the program because now it has values in those parameter names. So I'm going to copy this program, double click, Control A, Control C, go back to my VBA. I'm going to add code, and I'm going to run this program. So again, it's the same program here, except I called it P value 3. But instead of just calling it with the numbers, say 100, 5, and 10%, and say B, B, uppercase B for beginning, I'm going to get the values by asking the user to input the values. So let's run this. Enter annuity payments per year, 100, enter. Periods, 5, enter. Interest rate, 0.1, enter. And let's do an uppercase E, enter. And there's my 379. So it's kind of an interesting way to run Python code. and get the values from an input, from a user's input. So this is the end of section 1. The assignment for this section of topic 8 is you're going to save your notebooks, CAPM and PV annuity. What you're going to do is when you go back to your notebook, select print from the file menu and print as PDF and then save your file. All right, you're going to save those 2 PDFs, print files, and you're going to upload them to Canvas. But I'm going to have you do one more thing. Create a new notebook called Grades. So do File, New Notebook, rename it Grades, and I want you to replicate this VBA program in Python. Then I want you to include an input statement that has the user enter the grade, say 55, 0.55 for 55%, or 0.95 for 95%. Then I want you, what first we're going to do is test it, maybe run the program for values of 0.9 and 0.65. When it comes up for the input statement, put in 0.9 and then rerun the program for 0.65. That way I'll see all of that inside of the PDF. When you're done with it, done executing that and calling the program twice by putting in those 2 grades, go ahead and do a file or print and save as a PDF. And then this section requires then you to enter those 3 PDF files or upload those 3 PDF files to Canvas. If you're going to make a mistake, I have 3 little hints down here. Python is case sensitive and indent sensitive. So take a look at how the indents and cases look. Also, if you're copying from PowerPoint, it's probably not going to work. So you can't just copy from, a lot of times, from the web or from PowerPoint. And take a look at, if you get some errors, Colab will often suggest either to have AI come up with a suggested fix to your program, or might have some error messages at the bottom of the program that gives you an idea. So that's it. That is your introduction to Python programming. In the next section, we're going to talk about importing and exporting data and manipulating data sets in Python and using libraries.